Hey guys, Tarke here, and today I want to talk about Blight over some footage of Blight, and my cat is chilling on the bed there, which is why I've moved the green screen. So let's just play this before I play it, just so you can quickly read the map mods. Tier 9 Blighted Arena map, damage, accuracy, dodge, whatever. Tier 9 map. I wanted to talk about some of the things I really like about Blight, some things I think could be changed about Blight, and some of the just things I've thought about having read my chat and reading through Reddit and other things people have been saying about Blight. To preface this, there's a few interesting things. I was not at all excited for this league. I was really worried about it from the press footage I saw, and from some of the answers that I'd been seeing from devs and stuff. I was really like, ooh, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this league or not. As soon as I started playing the league, I loved it. I genuinely really enjoy this league. There are some issues with it that need fixing, but I really like it. Really like it. It just needs cleaning up. So, while I'm talking, I just want to touch on a couple of things that we're seeing in the gameplay here. So this is me trying to do the setup for the Blight encounter. You can see I have a portal that spawns right next to the bulb. Kind of unfortunate, but it's just far enough away-ish, and I got lucky that nothing too awful spawned there, that I was okay. Having set minimum distances for bulb encounters would be really nice. This is true of both Blighted maps and for just Blight to encounter in maps. One thing which can be kind of weird is that here, for example, the portal's very close, but it kind of like snakes around. So the enemies have to walk around a bit. If there's any kind of like AoE that the enemies do, it seems like that can like AoE onto the bulb, or if they're ranged mobs, I think they can just attack right away. I'm not entirely sure. Having some kind of set distance there would make the encounter feel a lot more consistent. Inconsistency is probably one of my biggest complaints when it comes to Blight. Mostly this is directed to the Blighted encounters in maps. So, for example, you could have on paper an incredibly difficult Blighted encounter, where you have like 10 portals or 12 portals, or basically a lot of portals. That should be really challenging. But they all spawn in a perfectly straight line in one direction away from the map, away from the bulb. And then what you can have what should be a very easy encounter. You only have 3 portals, and they all spawn in different directions very close to the bulb. And it's like, what's going on here? I feel like most, probably 60-70% of all Blight encounters I encounter in maps are complete face rolls, don't challenge me at all. And then I get like a couple which just randomly gib me really early without me even realizing, because something spawned very close, or to do with boss enemies spawning certain distances away from the encounter. So like, the tankiness of some of the bosses also seems fairly inconsistent. There are the golem dudes, where you kill them, they split into smaller golems, which splits into smaller golems, which splits into smaller golems. It takes ages to kill those guys, and if they spawn like right next to your bulb, you're kind of screwed. The leaping goat dude as well is one that stands out to me as being kind of challenging. But the others, not so much. Other things I've had which has been kind of annoying, I accidentally portaled there, my bad, is cases where I have everything set up, there haven't been enemy resistances, and then something just happens to walk straight past everything somehow, just literally one auto attack and the pump dies. There's like, I think it's like a unique dog or something, but it's like a dog looking enemy, and it just, I had tank minions set up, it wasn't resistant to minions, I had chilling towers, I was in the way, I was stood on the lane, and it literally just walked through everything, walked through me, just autoed and one-shot it, and I was like, don't know why that happened, but okay. Onto the towers themselves, as you can see here, when it gets super hectic, it's actually fairly difficult to do all the building you want to do, and a lot of that is to do with the way that the towers themselves function. So when you first build a tower, I think you need Cassie to be within a certain range. I've had multiple encounters before where I've wanted to build a tower, like near a wall, and it won't let me build. I don't know if that's because Cassia isn't close enough or something with the UI is broken, but I've had multiple times where I want to build, I have the resource to build, and it won't let me build. When you first build a tower, you can see it here. There's this massive like playing animation before you can then do future upgrades. That needs to be reduced substantially. I feel like you should instantly be able to upgrade straight away, or they need to do some kind of change, because it'd be really annoying when you're desperately trying to build, and it's like, I've got to wait 5 seconds before I can start upgrading this thing. Because of the constant, like, bombardment of waves upon waves, I find that intensity really fun. And this high intensity, like this cluster you're seeing right now, this is some of the most engaging gameplay I've ever had in PoE. I really enjoy this. But most people's machines can't handle this kind of stuff. And not only that, it kind of goes a little bit against what tower defense feels like to me. For me, tower defense, just from the games that I've played in the genre, it's kind of like, I want to build on my towers, I want to set up, you have like 5 waves, 6 waves, then you get like a brief like 10-15 second breathing period where enemies stop spawning after you kill the last mob, and that gives you like 10 seconds to run around, build any more towers or upgrade any more towers. That I think would be great, because if you saw in this one, when I started the event, I'm running like all the way down here, I run all the way over there, I run as far away as possible to build base towers. But now I'm basically just stuck in the middle, and you can see I've got resource going up and up and up, and I'm upgrading as much as I can while killing enemies. But I've got all of these towers down here that I can't ever realistically get to. I've got all the towers down here and over here, and I haven't got the time to get over to there. Now, if I could choose to build as many towers as I want in the middle, it wouldn't be that much of an issue. But I'm in a situation now where I'm killing mobs. You can see I'm building loads of rank 4 towers everywhere. But I'm just, like, getting way more resource than I can spend. So either give us more opportunities to spend that resource, or maybe lower the amount of resource we get. Maybe we start with more resource to begin with and generate less. But it just seems it seems wasted, right? So basically, you haven't got enough resource at the start to build, like, all the towers. But now I've got so much resource, but no opportunity to spend it. It's just, like, too much excess mechanic, basically, is what I'm trying to get to. When it comes to the towers themselves, you notice that I'm really only using 3 towers. Chilling towers, the upgraded tier 4, which makes like the frost walls. Fire towers, both tier 4 variants, the flamethrowers and the meteors. Flamethrowers on chokes, then meteors when there isn't like a clear choke right next to it. And then the minion towers of both the varieties, both the tank and the flying, like, zappy minions. I'm very happy with how the chilling, fire, and minion towers operate. They all feel really good to me. The lightning tower feels very underwhelming. My build shocks, so maybe it's just because my build shocks, it feels like a weak tower to me. But its damage, the damage it deals itself outside of the shocks feels very weak. It's also very visually heavy, and I've noticed it causes a lot of lag on my system, at least. I don't know if it causes lag on your guys' systems. And the arc upgraded tower seems less impactful than the fire, and the lightning storm seems less impactful, and again, very visual heavy. You want as little visuals as possible for this because of how, like, intense the encounter is. And you can see here I'm up to like 40,000 resource, and I'm starting to like rubber band around now as I'm trying to run around upgrading towers. So this is on to about like way too much excess. Now, at this point in the council, you actually notice there's a couple of bugged enemies. You can see here, these enemies here are rowers, which became invulnerable, and they just stood there. You can't target them, they can't die, they just do nothing. And it breaks the encounter. I've had that like 3 or 4 times. All people have reported that on Reddit. It's a big thing. And you can see here, I've killed everything, but because of these mobs, you can see them stood shadowy, like here and here. And therefore all of this excess. And I actually say in this video, I like to, when it bugs out, I like to spend the rest of my resource so I can actually see the loot. And you can see how many towers there are over here, but realistically, when would have I had the opportunity to get them? But we're still randomly having like 1 or 2 mobs spawning this way. Just the way that they spawn feels very inconsistent. So either have maybe a natural break halfway through to offer more building, have let us build more at the start, or just change something really on how that is laid out. Now, another thing when it comes to like the layout RNG, this is an issue I've had with the last couple of leagues because there's so much procedural generation going on. It doesn't feel, a lot of the encounters I do don't feel like they were designed by a person. It doesn't feel like someone chose the layout. I mentioned this when it came to synthesis, and how a lot of the synthesis zones felt very inconsistent, and that was when you're actually on the synthesized maps themselves and they're shrinking in from multiple sides. A lot of the encounters didn't feel like they were designed by someone. They felt like I was being put in a randomly generated map and stuff was just randomly happening. Sometimes I would get lucky and I'd get a really good run, and they were so good it just didn't even feel like a challenge. And then other times I felt completely screwed over. Now, the advantages of having that generated stuff is it requires less man hours and you get to generate more stuff. If it turns out that someone from GGG watches this and they say, actually, Tarke, I made all of these by hand, how dare you? I'm sorry. But if that isn't the case, I do think that having more of these kind of encounters designed by hand, yes, it would suck having less layouts, but I feel like it would probably feel better having more layouts of consistent quality than hundreds of variations but feeling really bad. It'd be like if you were really into playing, like, you know, Call of Duty or something, and every map was randomly generated. It would be kind of fun having the different varieties, but it would be really sucky if you just had terrible maps half the time because of it. Now, here I'm literally just spending resource, talking rubbish, and trying to pick stuff up, and you can see here there are still these 2 bugged out enemies here. Bugs are gonna happen naturally. It's just one of those things. They'll hopefully fix it in not too long. Now, when it comes to people saying stuff like, oh, well, they need a QA team, obviously they don't test anything, and, you know, if they had a QA team, we wouldn't have any of these issues. You can have a QA team. A QA team can find problems and say, hey, this needs fixing, and it doesn't get fixed in time of a product launching because you have deadlines. There are problems that I know are wrong with my production, for example, when it comes to stuff that I put out, but I haven't got the time or the resources to fix it. So it's like, well, I could not make any videos or not make any podcasts, or I could fix all the issues. I'm going to pick one with the time I have. GGG is very good with fixing stuff eventually. The problem is it's often the eventually side of things. Now, from the developer Bay class we had, it seemed very obvious that there was a lot of stuff still being fixed. They kept making the point of like, hey, we've still got another week. And there's nothing really wrong with that, but you guys need to either be like, I don't want to play a game where stuff is always being left to the last minute. If that's you, maybe you should just not play PoE for the first 2 weeks. Maybe you should just make a point of waiting 2 weeks. Or maybe just PoE isn't the game for you, because it's been like that for fucking years, and that's never going to change. I'm not excusing the behavior. I would much rather if it didn't happen like that, but don't act surprised. That's the thing. It's like, if you want to complain because it's bad practice and you think they should be nailing stuff down earlier, fair enough. But then come at it from that point. If you don't come at it from the I'm surprised that it's happening, you know, it'd be like if you don't train your dog and you're like, I don't get it, my dog keeps barking at people. It's like, we've got to train your dog, dude. I'm getting really distracted. Sleeping cat, by the way. But it became very obvious that a lot of stuff clearly was being like planned to the last minute. Things I would change personally if I was in control of how certain things would work. I would have set encounters in terms of layout. I would normalize the encounters in whites, yellows, and reds. What I mean by normalize them, it would be like, you have these amount of pods always spawn in yellows, these amounts of pods always spawn in reds, and you have set minimums, so that way every encounter feels more consistently challenging, and not most of them feel like an absolute joke, and then the occasional extreme challenge. I want everything to be like, yeah, I'm feeling tested. Oils should drop in blighted maps. I've never had oils drop in blighted maps. It might be a case of they're very rare, but the rewards in blighted maps feel incredibly low, especially since they crash or break as often as they do. I'm expecting that even once all the crashes get fixed, the rewards are still going to be on the low side. Grimro has done a bunch of testing with this stuff. You can see I'm desperately trying to click on stuff which gets stuck in towers here. The rewards just feel low. They're really fun. The rewards can be bumped up. Oils should definitely be coming from these guys. Another thing when it comes to oils, the anointing system and the fact that you upgrade towers, to me, feels completely backwards with the fact that enemies resist certain towers. I brought this up on Bay Class. I believe it was Neon. He said, yep, I guess that is kind of backwards that it works like that. What I mean by that is, if you look at my character, I've anointed for the chilling towers on my 2 rings, because the main towers I use are chilling towers for defense, minion towers for defense and offense, and the fire towers for just damage, right? And I find the increased range feels really, really great. It feels less great when like half the enemies or like all of the enemies in certain encounters all resist one element type. I very regularly, while mapping, will enter a map and every single portal just resists one type. That's not really fun. It doesn't really change the way I plan. It's just, oh, they all resist cold. I guess I just don't build any cold this time. If we're going to have a resist system, then I think the resist system needs to be made more impactful or more engaging, where you have it where they don't all resist one element. There's a set, they will resist 4 different or 2 different or this, that, and the other. Make it feel like you're having to think more about your setup, or just remove the resists, because it just feels lame. Because just like, oh, I fully invested in fire towers because fire towers are the only DPS tower which doesn't lag out my machine, and these guys resist fire towers. I guess I just won't build any towers this time around. It's like, I don't know. Another issue I have with the anointing system, this is like a very small issue, but it's something that I think probably should be addressed, is the way that players actually engage with anoints. So you want players to be like excited to anoint their gear. I was asking my viewers like how many of you have really done it. A lot of people said they hadn't. Some people said, oh, I've done like just my amulet, or I've looked at it but I'm saving up, I don't know what to do. A lot of the anoints are very expensive. A lot of the obvious anoints people would want to go for would be just like basic stuff like life. Even this is a fairly weak life node, 6% and 10 life gain on kill. It requires fairly rare oils. I'm level 92, and I've never encountered those oils. The highest tier oil I've had has been 1 black oil. I haven't had any silvers, I haven't had any golds. Obviously, you want certain oils to be very rare. You want players who have chase, but no one's chasing for hired killer to be on my amulet, if that makes sense. I think nodes like this should be a really cheap. This should be like, 3 clear oils, 3 tier 1, 3 tier 2 oils. You want exciting, weak but powerful nodes early, so while leveling, people are like, oh damn, I got this, that feels great. A good-ish example of that is Diamond Skin. Diamond Skin is fairly cheap. I think I got my first teal oil around about Act 6, Act 7, and I shoved this on a Kurui ward, and I used it all the way through to early maps. That felt great. Stuff like Constitution, that should be expensive. Something like Golem's Blood, Heart of the Warrior, and Discipline and Training, yeah, those should be expensive. Pure Flesh, not so much. Blood Drinker, not so much. Resourcefulness, definitely not gold and silver. I feel like, by having, this might seem like a very minor point to a lot of people, but just like having small systems so people get engaged early makes people want to engage with the system. We saw the same kind of problem with Synthesis. You could make amazing things with Synthesis, and this is much easier to get into than Synthesis. But there were very few, like, noticeably powerful early crafts to get into. It's just things like, Long Shot, fairly expensive. Fleetfoot, fairly expensive because it requires the opalescence. A lot of the ones which are kind of affordable-ish are ones which are very niche to certain builds. But even so, they require fairly high-tier oils. Like, to get this, I had to vendor a bunch up into that final violet or purple, whatever it's called. Have more affordable ones. They make the obvious ones, like the obvious like power ones, stuff like which give big amounts of crit multi, make those be expensive. So yeah, to briefly summarize, Blighted map should drop more oils. I'd like to see more oils dropping in general. I would like to see a slight rebalancing of the costs of certain things on the tree. It's not going to happen, but I would like to see that. Blighted maps are incredibly fun. I really enjoy them. The hecticness, the running around is great. I don't know how this will work on console without crashing people out. People with good machines are crashing on these. If you are crashing, avoid the lightning and the earthquake towers. I find it helps me personally. Having a breathing room might help alleviate that. if they have, like, no easy fix, even if they did something like cutting the amount of monsters that spawn, but, like, buffing up their health, or making them, move faster or something, that would feel pretty bad. Proximity shields, I don't know if I talked about proximity shields. Proximity shields is something which definitely should not be in the game, when it comes to Blight. Proximity shields in the game, fine, but for Blight, big no. When you have loads and loads of monsters, having monsters that can't be damaged just causes VFX lag. We've learnt this lesson a million times. We shouldn't still be experiencing this. There are some fundamentals that just should not happen. If I'm going to put like 100, 200, I don't know how many, but like entire maps worth of monsters on the screen at once, covering massive swathes of them with proximity shield is just going to cause people to crash. That's not a good time. Yeah. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm Tarke. Let me know what you think of Blight. What would you like to see changed? Is there stuff that you think shouldn't be or has to be changed right away? And are you one of those people who feel like they're being forced out of PoE just from the game being too technically heavy? It's something we've seen a lot of in the past few leagues. I don't really know how I feel personally about it. If I was the dev, I'd be constantly wanting to push my tech, making cooler and cooler things. But if I was someone with like 10k hours in PoE, 20k hours in PoE, I've been playing since 2013, and I had a shit machine, and I'm like, yo, Legion lagged me out, Syndicate lagged me out, every league is just worse and worse performance, what are you doing? Then I've got to admit, I'd be pretty pissed. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Cat.